Okay guys, it's time for another video down here in my dungeon lair. So I know that I promised that this video would be, this video would be a video about the greatest thing ever. But there's so much, there's so many things that happen and before this that I want to tell you some stories about some things that I've done and things that have happened before we get to that great thing video. And also just saying, like, it probably deserves a video all on its own, and I just haven't covered enough yet to get us there, mainly because we're starting to get more towards current times, and I remember things a lot better than I did things that happened when I was 20. Okay, so also, right, there's no script for these videos, like I've said before, so if I ramble, you'll just have to deal with it. All right. Okay, so last time we got comedy. So I got in a toxic relationship, and when I mean toxic, I mean like really up and down, a lot of ups and downs, and on again, off again type BS, and a lot of, ugly, when it was good, but when it was bad, it was just terrible, like the worst. A lot of things said and stuff like that, that was just terrible. But right around this same time, right before that, which sort of like, I don't know, maybe this was like some divine intervention, but I really got into like Eastern philosophy and like meditation and Zen, Buddhism, stuff like that. And like I would like meditate like every day. I started off, with just like 5 minutes or just a couple of minutes, and then worked my way up. I think I could pretty consistently do like, I don't know, like 30 minutes or something, which doesn't sound like a long time, but when you just sit there in one spot trying to think of nothing, it's a while. But I got into stuff like that, and that whole, I don't know, I'm not going to go too far down that rabbit hole, but anyway, Alan Watts was like my guy, right? I've probably listened to everything he's ever said, like at least 5 times over. Love the guy, love his style of communication mainly. And still do. I mean, I'll listen to him every now and then, like I don't agree with everything he says. I don't agree with a lot of the stuff he says, but, just that style of communication, and there is a lot of truth in it, regardless of what you think about it. But anyway, so I'm in this relationship, but we're on again, off again. It's kind of terrible for my mental health. And about this time also, I started doing, this is probably like a 3-year period, I would say. I started training jujitsu. I thought for sure that this woman was going to get me in an altercation with somebody, and I was going to get my ass kicked. And I knew that I was strong, and I knew that I was in shape and, fit and all this stuff. But I'd never really been punched in the face, or challenged in that way. And so I went to a jiu-jitsu school. I did a tryout, they gave me like a free week or something. And day one, I'm getting my ass destroyed by 15, 16-year-old, kids, boys and girls. And, it was day one, I was addicted. I've always been into like fitness and like, challenging my body physically. And this was a really challenging. It's hard to fight like at 100% for, even 5 minutes. At the school I'm at now, we do 8 minutes. And there was some times where we would do at the one I started at like 10 minutes. you know? And so it's like, it's pretty rough. If you've ever tried to fight, if you've ever been in a fight, you can imagine what that would be like for 5, 8, 10 minutes. I used to wrestle in high school, and those were 2 minutes, I think, and that was bad enough, you know? So, but yeah, I just fell in love with it almost instantly, and I would just, just signed up to get my ass beat every day since then. I'm still doing it. I'm not training as often as I did, when I first started out. I was training 5 days a week religiously, and my body was just taking a beating. And now I'm kind of old and I'm beat up, and I don't recover the same way that I used to. And so now I train I'd love to be able to train 3 days a week, but if I'm lucky, maybe I'll get a third day in. Sometimes I don't even get 2 in because just life happens, and it's priorities. And we'll talk about that in another video. But anyway, so I started doing that, and also, this is about the same time where I was like really into like mountaineering, which I still am. Man, I love climbing. I love hiking. I love climbing, anything outdoors. But this is when I first started getting into like real mountaineering. Me and my buddy took a trip to, I guess our first trip was to Mexico, like to the no disrespect, because I love the Mexicans, but to like the butthole of Mexico. I'm talking about deep in Mexico. Like, we just 2 gringos. I don't even speak Spanish. Like, I'm just now getting to where like I could maybe have a kind of a conversation with somebody in Spanish, but back then I didn't speak a lick. What did I know? I knew ¿Dónde estás las señoritas? Like, where are the girls? That's what I knew. But ¿Dónde está el baño? Could do that one too. I actually had to use that one a time or two. But anyway, we took a trip to Mexico. It's probably we were traveling for almost 24 hours, I would say, between the flight and then a bus and then another bus. We traveled through the night to get to a hostel that we were staying at I'll probably butcher it, but we called it Tlachuchuca, and it was in the shadow of Pico de Orizaba, which is also called like Capilchapec or something. But it's a almost 19,000 foot volcano. And so got there, spent like a couple of hours, got a few hours of sleep at the hostel. Then we took off up the mountain in these old Jeeps. It was really cool, man. And like, it was just a really cool like cultural experience. And then we get up there, I think our hut was like at 16,000 feet and some change, and stayed the night there. And then we started climbing the next morning about 1 o'clock in the morning. And it's, if you've ever been above, for me, everybody's different. Once you get above 10,000, things start to change. For me, I don't really, at least, of course it could be different. It could be different now, but I don't usually start feeling it till probably above 14, 15, 16. But at 16, you're like, I'm feeling it. Like, you can barely walk outside, say you're in the hut and you're just chilling, because a lot of it, like, when you're at that altitude, you're either climbing or you're just sitting still, because it's so hard to do anything. But yeah, just to go outside to use the bathroom, or just to go like walk outside and just walk like 100 feet, you're like struggling. And it's kind of hard to explain if you haven't experienced it. But imagine, like, first of all, the headache. You have a constant headache, like a constant migraine, and everything is difficult. Everything just becomes more physically demanding. Just going to the bathroom becomes more physically demanding, and you can't breathe. Like, you can barely breathe. So it's rough. It's really rough. But anyway, I was in fantastic shape, absolutely fantastic. You have to train for these things, obviously, and we were both in fantastic shape. And we took up the mountain early in the morning, following another group, and we got up to the glacier just a little bit after sunrise, and took off up the glacier. And you have to understand, like, my buddy had done a guided climb before this. He'd climbed Mount Rainier, which is a difficult climb, no doubt. But he was guided. We didn't have guides on this trip. We went completely solo, and we were probably a little overconfident. Anyway, we get up there, and we had to rent some gear too. So my buddy had rented crampons, and anytime you're renting gear in like another country, it's sketchy. That's one thing that you should definitely know. If you plan on renting gear in another country that isn't the U.S., it's sketchy. And so my buddy had like 2 right-footed crampons, so we get part of the way up the glacier and his crampon keeps falling off. And you have to understand, like, this particular glacier at least is, it's not, it's like this. It's like a 45 or more. And it's just solid ice. And it's like a big giant ice slide. And we got up a couple hundred feet below the summit, and my buddy was really having troubles with his gear, and I had just taken a fall that could have been catastrophic. I managed to catch myself, but it could have been absolutely catastrophic. And we decided to call it. So we actually didn't get to summit that mountain. But because of that, we decided that we would actually take a training course. And so we went up to Seattle, Washington, and into the Cascades, and we took a crevasse rescue course, a glacier crevasse rescue course, basically. And that was awesome, man. We were up there for a whole week on the side of the mountain, with a group of other, like, people that were all, around our age, like, really awesome. It was a really, really, really awesome experience. And we got to summit on the last day. This mountain was Mount Baker, is only like 10,000 feet. But when we were up there, the routes change all the time because the ice is constantly flowing. So the guy said that the route at the time was probably just as technical as Everest. The difference in Everest would be like just way more, just longer, way longer. And we were on this mountain for climbing for 12 hours, but Everest is like a multi-day climb. Everest would be. So, did that one successfully, killed it actually. And so we felt a lot more confident. We went to, planned another trip to Ecuador, and got a guide this time. We had almost no chance to acclimate. I think we landed in Ecuador and we were climbing 2 days later. And we weren't even on the mountain for probably 12 hours till we were climbing. And I did really good, but my buddy struggled some. He got sick, but he still managed. We managed to summit the mountain there, to Mount Cotopaxi, and I think it's right around 19,000 feet, 18 and some change, 18.9, something like that. Yeah, it was really cool. That was really cool. Our guide he was an older guy. He was probably in his 50s. And he whooped our asses. This dude whooped our asses up that mountain. It was wild. Like, he was like, he was like he was driving slaves, man. This guy whooped our, and we were in fantastic shape. Obviously, like I said, you have to train for these, right? So we spend months training for this. And this guy, some 50-something-year-old guy who's overweight and looks like he's out of shape, just whooped our asses up this mountain. It was really cool to experience. And then Well, there's another mountain that I've climbed since then, but I'll wait and save that for another video. But I was also doing things like I would just challenge myself and like very physically in whatever way. So I worked night shift, so I would my sleep patterns were all jacked up, and so I mean, there'd be nights where I'd wake up at like 2 o'clock in the morning, couldn't go back to sleep, so I'd go and run for like 15 miles, in the dark, and this is rural dark. There's no street lamps, so we're just like running in the dark, and just because couldn't sleep, and and I would do all kinds of weird stuff like that. I'd go run. It'd be like 20 degrees outside, and I'd go run with nothing but like short shorts on, and like just I don't know why I did that. I did a lot of crazy, stupid stuff like that. It'd be snow on the ground, and I'd just go outside barefoot. And like I did a lot of like really physically challenging things. I really wanted to see, I guess, push myself to my breaking point. I would run, how do I say this? I don't guess that I was really like training for anything specific, but I would go run for like 4 and 5 hours at a time. I created a route where I ran a marathon. One time I mapped out like a 26-mile thing and ran a marathon once. Not a good time. It wasn't a good time or anything, but it was terrible. But yeah, I would do that. One time I took off. I had a backpacking trip planned, and I took off like in the middle of the night. I couldn't sleep. Took off in the middle of the night and hiked in the dark like 20 miles until I literally fell over. Like I'm like dragging my leg behind me because I'm so physically spent. I throw up my hammock and like instantly pass out in the middle of nowhere too. Like I'm not talking about like, some, I don't know, small state park. It's hard to get 20 miles, not on the East Coast, it's hard to get 20 miles into anywhere because that's far. But this was up in the Great Smoky Mountains, and yeah, I hiked in about 21 or 22 miles and just passed out, like fell over half dead. But, I did that, just weird things like that, and I got into ultra marathons kind of, where like I liked watching these ultra marathon videos, and I really thought about doing an ultra. And I had mapped out an 80-mile loop, and I was going to have a resupply in the middle, but I had a 80-mile loop that I was going to do, or that I was planning. And yeah, I think I think that during this time of this off and on really toxic relationship, which ended pretty dramatically, but it ended, thank God. One of those where you can't seem to find your way out of it, I guess you'd say. But anyway, I had a lot of time to, in the off times especially, just to like be by myself. And I really feel like, despite all of the bad sort of social things that were, I guess, going on, this being by yourself and challenging yourself, and I'm talking, like self alone a lot, and I don't know. It seemed like it had a very cleansing aspect to it. It felt like, and yeah. So, like I said, I was planning this 80-miler, and I bet I sounded really country right then. Miler. Here in Middle Tennessee, we don't like to pronounce our I's correctly. We say white. Did I do that right? White, right, bright, light, like that. We do that. I try not to. I try not to. It's white. It's Michael, not Michael. Okay. Anyway, yeah, I was playing this 80 miler, and this is where I will leave you today, because this is literally when the greatest thing happens. All right, I got to get to working out because baby's asleep and I got to work out before she wakes up. All right, peace.